It's time for me to seal the Redhead drake head for oils, and I'm going to be using Teekays to do that. The reason I use Teekays is, and this is Teekays. It's sold by Curt's Waterfall Corner, and there's all the information on how to get it. This is a large can, 32 fluid ounces for $24 and worth every penny. Teekay's is fast drying. It's thin. I mean, it's unlike Deft. Deft is the polyurethane is just so much thicker than Teekay's is, and that's one of the reasons why Teekay's is superior, is because it's not going to fill in the detail of the Redhead like Deft would, and it would penetrate into the detail and then fill it in, where Teekay's actually sucks into the wood so that it's just, it penetrates like nothing else. So I'm going to, I like to pour a little bit out of my, it's probably more than I need for this small project, into a little custard cup, a glass custard cup. And you'll notice that I'm working on a white tagboard surface. That's going to be beneficial when I'm mixing paint, because I use a clear pie plate for a palette. Right now this pie plate is just protecting my white surface, and will eventually be used as the palette. So the other thing I use is a Filbert. This is a Princeton number 4 Filbert, and it's a natural bristle brush in the Filbert shape. It's my favorite, other than a round. And so I'm going to just, you can see how it's very watery. And I'm going to hold on to the bill and just put my first strokes on and just show you how it just sucks right in. Let me see if I can get that, document that. The absorption. So I'm bringing it right up. See how it just, this will be far more than I need. And the thing that's nice about the Teekays is, because I do seal it with the Teekays, not as much oil paint is needed to bring it up to the right color. So you can see that I'm just using this, dipping it in the first coat. Will suck in real fast, and you want to be sure and work it in so it's getting into the depths and the little nooks and crannies. The second time I come pass on this, what that will do is I will look for spots that are lighter than others and only apply it there. So I don't want the surface of this wood burn surface to be sealed. I want it to absorb the paint more like a stain, where with acrylic paint, when you're using, say, polyurethane, you've had to completely seal that surface so that the water from the acrylic paint isn't going to penetrate and into the wood and then raise your grain. That can make a real mess out of all of the like 12 hours of wood burning I did on this head. So I'm just bringing it up to the bill and working it in to all the feathery spots. It'll take a little bit more on the end grain. It's always thirstier than any other place on the wood. So don't be surprised if that comes up lighter after this dries the first time, after the first pass. I was saying before that when you paint, when you wood burn as finely as I've wood burned for this particular piece, all of your detail work that is often painted in is already done with the wood burner and your stoned in texture. So you can, I mean, even where I put my hands now, it feels dry because it's actually sucked in and evaporated. You know, this is lacquer based, so be sure and cover everything with one coat, and then start looking at where you started off and determining where a little bit more sealer could be applied. And hopefully, even though we are seeing grain lines, I've done my job well enough so that it's just the grain line color showing and not a hard line that's raised that I spent so much time trying to ditch during the burning process. Okay, so that's, we got to get underneath the bill here on this side. And into the little corner. With that done, then I can come back and just put a quick coat on the bill. I want to get into the nostrils. I want to work it into the lamellae that I burned in. You can see the wrinkles underneath on the lower mandible down the middle. That's a fleshy area that gets wrinkled and can even, you know, some ducks blow it up with air and you can see it extend out. Okay, so that's one coat on the bill. I'm starting to see here that there are areas that have sucked in a little more. I'm going to just apply a coat onto the bottom. So with all of this detail work already done, it's the only thing I really need to do is put the right colors in the right place. Unless, of course, there's vermiculation to be done. Can't carve that in. And, of course, highlighting and shading is another thing that you'll need to do. But for the most part, all of the work, detail work, is done with the wood burner and the stone and texture. Alright, so I'm going to go once more over the top of the head. You can see where it's a little bit lighter in front here, right there. So I'm just going to touch in these areas. It's usually a couple of good coats that are necessary. And then to get a good coverage, and then the third one is going back and making sure everything's the same color, and that would mean it will also have the same absorbency of the oil paint. If one area is absorbing the paint more than another, it can look darker there and create some differences that you hadn't planned on. So you want to make sure and get all of this sealed evenly. In the hard spots, it's not going to suck in as much of the sealer. And that familiar ting in the middle of the night from painting that I used to hear all the time. I work in the day now. I don't work in the middle of the night anymore. But it used to scare the bejeebers out of me sometimes because it'd be so quiet in the house, and then ting, I'd hit the lamp with my long brush handle and scare myself. See, it's end grain here, so it's definitely going to take more. I'm looking at it coming in backwards. I don't know how the color is going to translate to video when I'm mixing. This is the first time I'm trying this video setup, so I'm hoping it will be good for you. Very thirsty on the end grain here. Another coat on the bill. I love the smell of oil paint and the mediums, and the fact that it means I'm done with a lot of the really hard work and I'm to the place I really love, and that's the painting. Very thirsty in this front of this crest. Do another coat on the bottom. And then by the time this is done, I can take a look at where I started again. One of the nice things about Teekays is there's not a whole lot of dripping that goes on, like with Deft. You know, one of the worst things you can experience is a drip of Deft that you missed. You didn't see happening, and then it all dries and you got to deal with it. And your paint's never really going to cover at that drip up. It'll be seen in the right light, just like grain lines can be seen in the right light. See how light it had gotten here. This is end grain again. I love the color of the wood burning after I add the TKs to it. It's just very rich looking. Going around the eyes again. Feels dry to the touch as I work on it, and my fingers aren't getting sticky or anything like that, so it's kind of neat. If when you put it on it changes color, it's not done yet, so that's a pretty good clue as to whether or not you need to come back and do any more. So if it's all the same color, it should all absorb the paint at the same time, the same way. Now, I have sealed my acrylic, my bird's eye painted in acrylic with Teekays with not very good results. Because I was probably doing it like I do for oils, where I'm not too worried if it's not like completely sealed. And what happened was it wasn't sealed all the way, and the grain got raised when I painted it, and I lost a lot of my detail and ended up having to paint it all in. I mean, it was fine when it was done, but it wasn't my goal, and it wasn't the way I wanted it. So, of course, that's a lesson I learned. And I don't use Teekays for acrylic now. I only use polyurethane. Whether it's Deft or... I don't like Minwax polyurethane. It's kind of sticky. Where the Deft satin finish, I have a lot of great luck with that. And brushing backwards against the way that the feathers are flowing also works it in really well. Don't get, don't brush right over the eye, but don't get too upset if you get some sealer on the eye itself. You're going to be coming back with a toothpick dipped in lacquer thinner and cleaning that off. So, but you do want to get, because this is a wood around here, and you don't want that to be raising its green. Tip of the bill is also thirsty. See how it just sucks right in, and all of a sudden it's shiny and then it's not? It's all sucked in. Shows you how it works on the feathered areas. Just a little more obvious on a smooth surface. Alright, so there's a sheen that starts to happen too that also tells you you're close to sealing, being sealed and done. See how that changed color just a little bit, so just give it a few minutes to absorb in and dry, and it'll show you where you need to come back and add a little bit more, like right here. Again, that end grain is going to be so thirsty, and that's running all the way here, all the way around. So now my hands are starting to pick up a little bit of Teekays. Because it's not sucking in as much as it did before. Another coat on the bottom. And that should do it. So the next video I'm going to be showing how I will mix the paint for the Redhead Drake, and we'll talk about the medium I'm going to use, mediums I'll be using, and the brushes. Under the bill. It's hard for me to get the light in there so you can still see. That ought to do it. And the Redhead is sealed.